I'm Grandpa Owen, and I love you. Come on a journey with me.
I'm Grandma Owen, and I love you. Come join our family. God is so good, and He loves you. Life is grand.
Yes, it is.
You are love.
You are love and family to me.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Oh, thank you. It's a box and a balloon. My favorite. I love boxes.
And open the box. Open. It says.
You and me.
Yep.
Oh, cool. This is our, look at this. This is a picture of us and me. And let's see, when
Well, look here. Read this.
you were a baby and when I was a baby.
And then we're grown up.
Love is everything.
And over here it says.
It says, the story of you and me is my favorite story.
Yeah.
So why don't we tell our story?
Tell our story.
Look at all these people out here.
Yes. So Brad and I met, and 9 days later we were engaged. Story's done. No,
Hey,
I'm
that's
kidding.
pretty good.
That is the truth.
So the first time we met is when we were at a folk dance audition, and Betty came up to me with her friend and said hi. I said hi back.
And I have no memory of that whatsoever.
So for the real story,
I am from Denver, Colorado.
and I'm from Pleasant View, Utah, and we met
In,
Mountain View, Wyoming.
yeah, we met in Wyoming. So what happened is Brad is an Institute folk dancer, and I was dating the folk dance team, kind of.
She had a lot of friends on the team that she was dating, put it that way.
Yeah. And so I was invited to go to this retreat that they were having in Wyoming, and I went with 3 of my friends, and when I got up there, they ditched me. They didn't even talk to me, and so I'm feeling really super awkward because I'm not even a dancer. And I thought, okay, I can either cry or I can be brave and go meet somebody else. And so I braved up, went outside, and I met this other guy, and let's call him Jeff. And he took me for a motorcycle ride, and he's a little bit wild and crazy, and took me up a mountain kind of in a papa wheelie, a little risky. And I came back down, we had a great time. I came back down and I look over, and here's this really cute guy who's playing with the instructor's kids. And I thought, ooh, good looking, good with kids. I got to get to know this guy. So I braved up and I walked over and I said, hey, would you mind taking me for a ride on your 3-wheeler?
So I took off with her on the 3-wheeler, leaving the friends behind that I had made. They were young kids anyway, but it was fun. And we went out for a scout to look around what was around us, and we came across mountains and hills and valleys and mud and fun stuff, and we got covered in mud completely. We got the 4-wheeler stuck 3 or 4 different times, had to push start it a few times, and then we decided after 4 hours we probably had to go back and get something to eat.
And so we went back, had a good meal, wonderful water fight so we could get cleaned up a little bit.
Yeah, we sprayed each other down completely, like we were full of mud, and so we just like sprayed each other with a hose, and then we were clean. Well, that night, after we had played and had a good time, we went to a movie, right? And back then we had a drive-in movie where we drove our cars in and had a big screen and saw a double feature. But the thing was, I didn't go with her. She went with, what's his name?
Jeff, we're calling him Jeff.
Calling him Jeff. And she was in the back of the truck with Jeff, and I walked by and she said, hey, Brad,
Come here.
hop in the back with us. So, because you parked so you could see it, and it was a nice seat for the movie. So I hopped in the back of the truck, and Gordon was back there, and Jeff was back there, and there was another Jeff, right, that I invited back there? There's 2 Jeffs back there.
And anyway, he asked me for my phone number that night, and he just memorized it. And I thought, he's never going to remember this. And I was really hoping he would remember this. And the next day, he called me. He did remember my phone number. He called me, and he set up a date for us to go out canoeing.
So we went to Causey Dam, and the dam was more of a river than a reservoir, but it's not very wide at all, but it was kind of fun. And she brought Rice Krispie treats, and the fun part about that is we got to play with them. They were hard as a rock. So we just whacked them with the sticks and they just went all over the place, but they didn't break, just the grease went all over the place.
These were so hard. I mean, water soaked, greased, hitting them with a canoe paddle, they still would not break. We laughed about it, watching the grease float down the river, and it's a joke. Now, I actually make really terrific Rice Krispie treats that you can play with, and they taste good and they're amazing, but these were not that.
So they were really, really good. Well, I don't know. We didn't really try them, did we?
You were trying. You were so charming. You're like, try. I'm like, please don't do this.
So anyway, after the date was over, we went home and she left her blanket in the back of my car.
On accident.
On purpose.
On accident.
After she left her blanket in the car, I called her up and decided to take her out on another date. And a few days later, I think it was a couple days later, we went to the mall. And instead of eating at one restaurant, we ate at 3 different restaurants. We ate at Chick-fil-A and Orange Julius and
nachos. We got nachos.
Got nachos.
So anyway, the next night after we went to the mall and had all this amazing food, we came back home and we sat on a swing, very similar to what we're sitting on right now, and we had a great big talk. And in this talk, he was fishing around and kind of asking me to marry him, and I totally shut him down.
She just got out of an engagement and told me that she didn't want to talk about it.
Or I'd run away. And so he kind of let that go. But that night I came back in and I was reading my scriptures, and I went to Doctrine and Covenants, section 104, verse 33, and it said, "Inasmuch as they are faithful, I will multiply blessings upon them, and their seed after them, even a multiplicity of blessings." And so I looked up the footnote to seed, and that led me to Psalms 112, verse 2, which says, "His seed shall be mighty upon the earth, and generations of the upright shall be blessed." Now, I don't know what kind of answer you get out of that, but what I got out of that was I am going to marry Brad Owen. And I was so excited. I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm getting married to this really cute guy.
And he doesn't even know it.
So I went outside and I thought, oh, how cute. Our names are Brad and Betty. We're like bread and butter. And I actually wrote that in my journal that night. And I also wished on a star that he would ask me to marry him again.
So the next day I took Betty up to look at some houses in the neighborhood where I lived. And they were very nice houses. And I told her, hey, if I bought a house, you wouldn't have to worry about it because I could fix things.
Now, did you catch that? If I buy a house, you wouldn't have to worry about fixing things because I know how to fix things.
Okay, so the next day, I believe it was, we went on another date, but she invited her sister and one of my friends, and they went, he had a 4-wheel drive, and we went 4-wheeling back behind
on a double date.
Pineview Dam. So the following day, we went over to my house and talked to my brother. We were jumping on the trampoline, and he said, hey, are you going to marry her? Looking at me, and I kind of was embarrassed, had not asked her yet, so I didn't know what to say, so I didn't say anything. Then he turned to Betty and said the same thing.
Hey, Betty, are you going to marry Brad? And I'm like,
So then he said finally, well, I'm going to. And he was 6 years old at this time.
And so I met his parents, and his dad was sitting in the backyard reading his scriptures. His mom was in the house with the kids, and I played the piano for them a little bit, and it was pretty awesome to go home, meet the family.
So that night we also kind of planned a trip to Denver for July 4th. I think it was July 3rd actually, but we were there for July 4th. And that was a trip to see her parents. So still we had not talked about marriage yet, but we just planned a trip to go to Denver to see her parents. So the next day we decided to go to the Institute building and sign up for a marriage and dating class.
We're still not engaged.
Nope, but we're going to sign up for a marriage class.
So then after we signed up for this marriage class, we went over to the grocery store to go shopping for some food. And we're in the egg section, and he tells me that, you know, how do I feel about long engagements? And we talked about stuff. And anyway, he basically proposes to me, and I basically said yes. But I said, I can't tell my posterity, my children and grandchildren, that you proposed to me in a grocery store. So this doesn't count. My answer is yes, but this doesn't count. You have to propose to me the right way. So after that, we wanted to go up and tell his parents that we were engaged. And we hadn't said, I love you. We hadn't kissed. We were on our way to tell his parents we were engaged. And I was so nervous that day. He picked me up and I'm just freaking out. And he can tell I'm freaking out. So we're driving up to his house, and I had decided that we would have our first kiss in the cherry orchards, which is just below his house. And so we're driving past, and I said, can you pull over? And he's like, yeah, sure. So he pulls off, and I said, can we go for a walk? And he's still not knowing what is going on with me. And so he opens the door because he's a gentleman and helps me out of the car, and we go for a walk in the cherry orchard, put my hands on his chest, and I said, you can kiss me now. And he bent down and he gave me a kiss, and it was amazing. And I said, kiss me again.
She was worried that I wouldn't kiss well, and apparently that's an important thing for her, is to have a guy that kisses well.
Well, because if you're going to be married, you got to be able to like kissing each other. And so anyway, we passed through that little test and went home and told his parents, and it was cute. He had his parents in the living room upstairs, and he had me downstairs, and he goes, hey, Mom and Dad, I just wanted to tell you that. And then I run up the staircase at that very moment. I said that we're engaged, and that's how we told his parents. And then I let him know that he was going to need to ask my father's permission to marry me.
So we did that about...
And you were nervous.
What? We just hopped on the phone, right? The next day, or maybe even the same day. But we did that. We called up her dad and said, hey, Dad, you know, I want to marry your daughter. And he said, great, good job.
So then we get to start doing all of the fun things that you do for weddings. I got to try on wedding dresses, and we got our wedding ring. And our wedding ring was 9 diamonds, one for each day we knew each other before we were engaged. The next important person that we had to tell that we were engaged was my sister. And she was directing a camp up at Little Big Springs, which is a beautiful place. And we're sitting in the tent, and she talking and talking and talking, and I'm going like this, trying to point out my ring. This is the actual ring that was my wedding ring, and I'm doing this while she's talking, and she finally stops, and she freezes, and she goes, and she snaps onto my arm, marches me out of the tent, and she goes, is that what I think it is? And I said, yes. And she goes, with him? And I'm like, yes. And she was so excited for us. And so she knew a perfect, beautiful meadow. And Brad got on his knees, and he officially asked me up there, and I said yes. So I do a lot of music, obviously, and one of the first things that we did when we were engaged was I, of course, booked him to do a special musical number. And we did I'm a Child of God. We sang it in English, and then he sang it in Portuguese. I sang it in Chinese, and it's wonderful. And now we've got our children that can sing it in Tagalog and Italian and Japanese. And I'm a Child of God is a song that we still perform as a family, and we can perform it in all kinds of languages now. And that started even before we were married, that little tradition.
Very good. So after that, we went on a Sunday walk with my parents, and my mother called Betty, her daughter, and that thrilled her to death because now she knew she was accepted into the family.
Yeah, I was so excited. We went home that night, we sat on the swing again, we had another great big talk, and it was so awesome. We were sitting on the swing like 2 old married people. And now we are the 2 old married people.
Yeah, here we are.
With kids and grandkids, and we still have a swing that we sit and we talk and love life. So we got Brad his ring, and my ring, of course, is the beautiful 9 diamonds.
And mine had 3 for I love you.
So we went to the temple, and we got married in the Ogden City Temple. And when we went to schedule it, the sister that was there, she says, it was his brown eyes, wasn't it? And I'm like, you can see it too? Yeah, because when we were out on the four-wheeler before, he turned around to me and his brown eyes just took my breath away.
And her blue eyes, because she wore blue contacts, so they were really bright blue, were just totally stunning as well.
So the day that we booked the temple, the sister was like, it was his brown eyes. And I'm like, oh my goodness, yeah. So that was kind of a funny story.
So Betty decided to sit down and create this wonderful, beautiful meal for me, and it was candlelight dinner for two.
And I accepted officially his proposal with this poem. It's by Carolyn Pearson. It says, it's called No Business. I have no business being in your life, but I'm not here on business. I'm here on love, and love transacts without permission. Love doesn't phone ahead or even knock. It just shows up and sits down, takes over, and lets some in and turns some away. Well, it let me in and wrote me in red all over your calendar. And so, although I have no business being in your life, I may stay anyway. And we kissed 5 times that night. And I officially accepted his proposal over a candlelight dinner.
So finally July 3rd came and we decided to hop on a plane and go to Denver because we had planned on doing that. However, this is a little unique because Betty ran a tuxedo shop, and so she put us in tuxedos.
Matching
Matching tuxedos. And so we decided to go to the airport in tuxedos and get on the plane and fly to Denver in tuxedos. And we got lots of strange looks.
But we looked terrific. And we got off the plane and my mother said, what choir group are you guys with? And on September 5th, 1986,
we got married and
lived happily ever after.
That's right, we're still alive. That's good, right? Every morning we wake up and say, yep, I'm still alive. That's right, that's our story of how we met. We're glad you were able to enjoy it. We've enjoyed it in our entire life.
We have enjoyed our entire life. We've been on vacation for 35 years.
That's a different story.
Stay tuned.